Last time. Ew. Hello everyone, and welcome back to LorePlay Bloodborne the Old Hunters. It's Dr. Faust once again, and we're going to be finishing up the research hall and encountering not one, but two bosses this episode. So, let's get to it. But of course, let's first review how we got here. Upon returning to the hunter's dream, we were accosted by a messenger wielding the eye of a blood-drunk hunter. The eye stated that hunters drunk with blood were taken by the nightmare, and that if we sought entrance into said nightmare, we should look next to Odin Chapel. Upon investigating the outside of Odin Chapel, we were snatched by a lesser amygdala and transported to the hunter's nightmare. There we encountered blood-drunk hunters engaged in an endless hunt against beasts that posed no threat nor challenge to them. And at the center of the cathedral ward, we discovered, of course, the Grand Cathedral, venerating a flaming cleric beast that clutched an eye pendant in its hand. The pendant stated that the nightmare housed two grand cathedrals, one past the River of Blood, and the other which housed the private research hall of the Healing Church. Pendant said, "Grant eyes to the surgery altar's skull." And so, after emerging through a tunnel, we discovered the second cathedral in the distance. After traveling a ways down the river, we encountered a beggar that seemed surprised at our lucidity and asked us if we had any interest in nightmares. Replying in the positive, the beggar said that the nightmare housed a secret so terrible and unseemly that those of the Healing Church would kill to ensure that it never be revealed. And upon tracing the River of Blood back to its source, we discovered Ludwig the Accursed, the grand hero of the Healing Church, reduced to a hideous malformed beast. Partway through the battle, Ludwig regains his senses, stands on his hind legs, and duels you, not as a mindless beast, but as a tragic, misshapen man. Still, he falls, and all that is left of him is his head, asking if you've seen the thread of light. And upon disguising ourselves as a Healing Church hunter, asks us if the Healing Church is as honorable as he would have hoped it would be. Answering in the affirmative, he turns over his holy moonlight blade and passes into a deep, deep slumber. Emerging out of the underground corpse pile, we find ourselves in a jail with the living and the dead in its cells, including one man ringing a silent bell and wearing the skins of a cleric beast. When we speak to him, he asks us if we can hear the bell. Answering in the affirmative, he admonishes us, saying that such pettiness will do us no good, and that we should simply leave and go back to our hunt. And from the prison, we found ourselves in the second Grand Cathedral, and fought off a hunter resembling Vicar Amelia and another hunter dressed in the black medical hunter's garb. Upon further inspection of the Grand Cathedral, the only entrance was through the prison, and at its very center, the surgery altar. Once placing the eye pendant within the surgery altar, the altar itself was revealed to be an elevator that took us up further into the clock tower and into the research hall. And here in the research hall, we have borne witness to the horrible experiments conducted by the Healing Church on prisoners and innocents alike, all in the name of communion with their great ones, their gods. Now, by elevating the stairs, we have opened the way further into the astral clock tower. But before heading down, I do believe that somebody had an interest in brain fluid. We're about to encounter another bodiless patient. However, unlike the previous patients, this one's non-hostile, and the reason for that may be explained by the diverging means in which they lost their body.
Splish, splash. Splish, splash.
Needless to say, given my experience with the previous bodiless patients, I was a little gun-shy, more of a whip first, ask questions later scenario, if you ask me. Grayish amoeba-shaped brain fluid wobbles and bounces, extracted from a patient whose head expanded until that was all that they were. In the early days of the Healing Church, the Great Ones were linked to the ocean, and so the cerebral patients would imbibe water and listen for the howl of the sea. Brain fluid writhed inside the head, the initial makings of internal eyes. So, of course, the logical conclusion is that the patients that we encountered before had their heads removed, and this patient seemingly absorbed its body until it was nothing more than a head. These patients, too, are seemingly immortal.
Listen close, and you too will hear the sound of water.
And look who we have here. What have you got to say for yourself, buddy?
Oh, hello. Not a pretty sight, is it?
You could say that.
The true face of the blood-worshipping, beast-purging, healing church. But that's not all. You seek the secrets held by the nightmare, do you not? Then here's what you must do. Climb the astral clock tower and kill Maria. She hides the real secret.
Let me get this straight. You want me to kill somebody, and I don't even know your name? So I'm going to jump the gun a bit here. This is Simon. He's a Healing Church hunter, and he's wearing the Harrowed Hunters set. The Harrowed Hunters were essentially spies for the Healing Church, posing as beggars, looking for the first sign of the Scourge, or, more appropriately, looking for any excuse to do a quick purge of the citizenship of Yharnam, which I'm sure more than helped in providing test subjects for the research hall. And here we have the final variation of the patient enemy in the research hall. In one of the more bizarrely gamey aspects of the old hunters, raising the staircase causes these guys to spawn on the bottom floor for some reason. It's not as if they fell out of anywhere, they're just here now. I don't understand why, other than to provide a challenge and possibly show off an enemy that you may not have encountered in the research hall so far. But we don't have time to play around with these guys. There's a thirsty lady waiting for some brain fluid.
Oh, thank you. You're terribly kind.
I don't even want to know how you ingested that.
Oh, it's wonderful. Oh, I hear the sticky sound. Do you hear it too? Oh, I know. Will you have my blood as thanks? I'll have you know, I was once a blood saint too, so do come back if you ever run dry of saint's blood.
And with her dialogue, we learn an even more horrifying truth. being a member of the Healing Church does not grant you protection from the whims of the upper echelon, and even then you may become one of their test subjects. However, it's now time to see what happens to those who truly fail to achieve greatness. It's time to meet the first boss of the Astral Clock Tower. The Living Failures. While arguably the weakest fight in the Hold Hunters, the boss battle against the Living Failures lends some interesting speculative insights for us, no pun intended. First and foremost, let's talk about the arena itself. Clearly, it's a reference to the Lumen Flower Garden, which, coincidentally, is directly underneath this arena on a lower level of the Upper Cathedral Ward. Second are the failures themselves, clearly half-finished, misshapen versions of the Celestial Emissary. Before I dive too deep on any lore speculation, I do want to give From Software a bit of credit on doing a multiple enemy boss fight right. You'll notice that two of the failures are actually pretty aggressive melee attackers, while the other two cover them with spells and other various attacks. I'm also going to point out that I burned through a lot of blood vials through this fight, because I never realized that you could parry the Living Failures, a fact that's going to come and bite me in the ass later on. Let's talk about the giant sunflower in the room. That is known as the Lumen Wood, which I believe is a mature version of the Lumen Flowers. Now, the Lumen Wood serves as a nourishment bed for phantasms, which are familiars of the Great Ones, slimy invertebrates most typically depicted as snails and slugs. The Lumen Wood itself, I believe, comes from the Nightmare, and was most likely harvested from the Nightmare Frontier. Next is their group arcane attack, which they are about to perform. It looks familiar, if on a grander scale than we're used to seeing. I believe that this, in fact, is the source of a call beyond. A hunter's tool that summons a small exploding star. It states in the item description that sometimes failure is the mother of invention. I think a clever callback by naming these the Living Failures to that arcane spell's creation. One thing that I've never been able to come to a convincing conclusion on is why the Living Failures and the Celestial Emissaries seemingly appear out of nowhere. With the Celestial Emissaries, they seemingly bloom out of the Lumen Flowers, but with the Living Failures, they materialize out of the flower bed itself. Although their appearance out of nowhere may in fact simply be a reference to the Four Kings fight in Dark Souls. Another question to ask is, why even keep them around if they fail to achieve true greatness? Well, I think their purpose here is twofold. The Healing Church, I don't believe, ever throws away anything. They're big fans of using every part of the buffalo, and I believe that the Living Failures serve as guard dogs for Maria and potential research materials for whatever horrible experiments the Healing Church may perform next. Also, considering the heavy Lovecraft implications used throughout Bloodborne, the Lumen Wood itself may in fact simply be a reference to the color out of space. A story about a meteor that crashes from space, harboring some eldritch intelligence that corrupts and pollutes the land around its crash site. But as I close out this fight, I want to ask you, the viewers at home, what do you think? I want to hear your theories on Bloodborne, not only of the narrative, but also references from other works. And now I'm about to let my eagerness get the better of me. as I fail to light the lamp, at least at first, and also jump headlong into another boss fight without properly restoring my supplies. And here we have the lead up to what is once again arguably the best received boss fight in both Bloodborne and the Old Hunters DLC. We are about to battle Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower. And boy, do I have a lot to say about this character, Gehrman, the Healing Church, the Cainhurst Vilebloods, and a myriad of other subjects. But before that,
A corpse should be left well alone. Oh, I know very well how the secrets beckon so sweetly. Only an honest death will kill you now. Eliminate you from your wild curiosity.
wow, where do I even begin? Well, let's begin at the obvious. Lady Maria is the basis of the doll from the Hunter's Dream. And not only that, she is seemingly a Cainhurst noble. But let's talk about that introduction a bit, shall we? First and foremost, the way she releases your hand is nearly a reverse of how the doll takes your hand when you level up your character in the Hunter's Dream. Secondly, her speech about a corpse being left well alone is, in fact, a double entendre that will be made clear later on. Also, she possesses the art of quick-stepping, much like Gehrman did. However, she didn't use an item in order to enable her to perform that action, meaning, or at least with a bit of speculation, that the old hunter's bone found at the old abandoned workshop is hers. There are a number of Bloodborne translation, lost in translation videos out there, mainly VaatiVidya's, that states that the original translation did not, was actually rather gender neutral in regards to the identity of the student of Gehrman's that had mastered the art of quick-stepping. Most importantly, however, is Maria's heritage. She's clearly related to Cainhurst, the Cainhurst Vilebloods, sworn enemies of the Healing Church. One can extrapolate from that fact then that at one point the Healing Church and the Vilebloods worked together, and perhaps that point was before the Healing Church's formation, when the Healing Church was still known as the College of Byrgenwerth. I believe that Byrgenwerth was founded by the Cainhurst nobles as a means of reconnecting with their heritage, that heritage being the Pthumarians, guardians of the old gods, the Great Ones. But for now, I'm going to stop talking and give this fight the respect it truly deserves. And so ends one of the best boss fights in gaming, at least in my opinion. So, Lady Maria has fallen, and with her, the final barrier between us and the true secret at the center of the nightmare. We need only raise the celestial dial to the heavens to open the pathway to said secret. I love the subversion of the From Software anti-climax, which is something that they've used in Demon Souls, Dark Souls, so on, which is you are told to go somewhere, seek someone, and when you get there, they ultimately provide no information. Of course, the example in Bloodborne being Willem at Bergenworth. And you do the same here, being sent by Simon to kill Lady Maria, only to find her already dead, which is a fascinating little bit of reference to Lovecraft's work, she has gained far too much knowledge about the arcane, and it has driven her to such despair that she has taken her own life, only to revive long enough to stop you from sharing the same fate. And here we have the secret, the terrible secret that so many members of the Healing Church tried desperately to prevent us from finding. A simple fishing village. A fun fact is that this area is actually physically directly over the Hunter's Nightmare, which will explain something we encountered earlier.
Child. Mercy. Oh, please. Atonement for the wretches. Lay the curse of blood upon them and their children and their children's children forevermore. Each wretched birth will plunge each child into a lifetime of misery. Mercy for the poor prison's child. Let the pungence of cause cling like a mother's devotion.
And there you have it. The secret at the center of the Hunter's Nightmare is a curse. A curse by a great one, Mother Cause, whom, if you remember, Mikolash attempts to invoke during your boss fight with him in the Nightmare of Mensis. But what does Bergenworth have to do with this? And why is the curse in place? We're going to learn the answer to these questions and ask many more as we enter the fishing hamlet. But let's save that for the next video. Before I go, however, that hanging corpse looks rather familiar, doesn't it? I guess we know where the hunter's mark came from. And before I go for this episode, I just want to thank you, my viewers, for watching, and everybody who's supported this Let's Play. Also be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also share with your friends. I really love interacting with the Dark Souls and gaming community as a whole, and I want to definitely hear your theories on people, places, motivations, timelines. Anything and everything you've got to share, I want to hear it. I'm Dr. Faust saying, if at first you don't succeed, die again.